You're a white girl that would say, well, you have a lot of experience. You're overqualified. Yeah. So now I'm so overqualified, I can't eat. I don't have a place to live.
See, that's a moment.
That's a moment?
Yeah, what he's saying makes so much sense.
So that's all they're hiring now. They're hiring a young, yuppie MySpace.
Well, my mother was Puerto Rican. She sued the Board of Education in 2003. Class action suit.
Okay.
It was about 20,000. It was the largest lawsuit in their history.
Really?
What?
Discrimination, racism.
Do you think because she was Puerto Rican, they weren't passing it?
There was this. Yeah, it was a race. It was a case of racism, and was 20,000 applicants were sort of became the largest class action suit in the Board of Education's history. And the day she retired was the day she died. Sort of like it was very wow. It was very death of a salesman-ish type ending. And on the front page of the New York Times, you had Strom Thurmond died the same day, and then you had she didn't win the first round, so it was very devastating. But then in the appeal process, they found, they gave her.
But she was already dead by then?
Yeah. Wow. It was horrible.
And so that's why you had such a trauma about 9/11 happened, and then
I got
she
fired
died?
from M&N in 2002 November. So then she died June of 2003. So within that 7-month period was just the worst.
Well, you're right about the gay and the lesbian.
Are you going to go on record about here?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of gays and well, there were. I don't know how many there are now, but there were a lot of gays and lesbians there around that time, because you had openly like Steve Mendelsohn.
Yeah, he was the one who fired me. I was I was kicked out of the building by these two guys with guns, big dudes. I mean, he was very.
You mean with force?
No, they didn't
just
force me. They
have
just
guns.
were cops. Not the community cops though. Not those guys. I knew Ozzie Smith.
Ozzie, yeah.
Yeah, I used to call him all the time. Every week I called the show.
Right.
I used to talk to him. He was a really cool guy. Nat Wood.
Nat Wood, yeah, and all those guys.
I like Nat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I loved all those people, man. But it was just.
What I like about John is he's both a producer and staff. Because I always felt that staff would empathize with us more if they were actually producing.
No, they'll be.
I
mean, I've been screwed out of.
Amy was nice. Amy was always nice.
Yeah. I was screwed out of like overtime. I mean, it was just horrible.
I think it's better now. I honestly do. I think.
No, I even agreed with you about that.
Yeah.
I said that about it too. It's gotten a lot better because when I worked there was no automated system. Everything was manually operated.
Right.
So that just drove. I had a serious breakdown in that respect because it was just. It was like like that scene in Metropolis where the guy's doing the thing, and you just if you fall out of time, everything just would fall apart. It just became very absurd.
Wow.
So it was
this is really nice that people get to know the personality behind the handle.
It was well, those switches, every half an hour.
Yeah. Those top of the hour, bottom out, 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
4 days a week, and it just took.
And they don't pay that much. They never paid that much. Well, it's non-profit, so they never paid that much.
Yeah, I was under Tony Riddle, who I got along with very well.
Yeah, everybody liked Tony Riddle, but then afterwards, Mendelsohn came in.
That's the story. It's really where it all begins for me. Is when he came in. I had one of the highest evaluations given. I can prove it too. I had one of the highest valuations given an employee there, which is sort of like propping somebody up and then just working your way down.
Well, you know what it is. He wanted to get rid of as many people as possible so he could put his people in.
Yeah, and he hired shills who were eventually fired about a month or two afterward because he basically hired shills to bully the old crowd. And it was just the persons that they were. It was me, Tony Riddle, Donna Woody, who I got along with very well. I really missed Donna Woody. I thought that she was, when they left, something left with it.
Well, again, you had that whole big takeover.
Yeah.
And they who had their agenda.
But now that Google is threatening to take over, do you think that
I don't understand how
how does that work?
Yeah,
I don't know.
What I have to do is go to Rick Speciale and get the footage of me at the hearings, But basically somebody got up
Whoops,
and they talked about how all the gripes that people had about MNN would be resolved by greater efficiency if Google took over.
Right, there was a guy in that showing you showed up to, the big giant hearing with the that guy who got up there. Yeah, the guy.
So you watch a lot of Access.
Well, they play it. Yeah, they play it a lot too. Yeah,
okay,
they play it.
I don't watch it. I have
every day they play that video.
Really,
at
every
night,
day?
3 o'clock in the morning.
Have you seen me?
Oh, the meeting.
Oh,
yes.
Mini meeting.
Yeah.
Oh, we should probably order.
I just want coffee.
You know what?
Have you seen me on that?
Yeah, you're the one who, you had the white and you're standing, I think, no, pink.
Amy Goodman came up to me after.
Right, and you said Amy Goodman can, probably knows better about this than I do.
Yeah, I turned around and she was on a cell phone at the time.
Coffee, half and half.
I'll have eggs Florentine, but no home fries. Just regular water with no...
I would love the coffee also, with milk and sugar.
Yeah. Did you order what you wanted?
Oh, it's the brunch, okay. Quarantine, Benedict.
Yeah, Amy Goodman came up afterwards and she said, she called me Becky, but other than that...
Becky, that's your nickname.
But anyway, I think they want to make production better at M&M. They don't want
Sorry?
I think they want to make production better at M&M.
Oh, sure. I mean,
that
would
nice
be the...
to the producers now, and there's,
Yeah, that's the whole point. That's the thing, is to make it better.
Yeah.
And there was a time when it was going backwards beyond, like... It was like being on a train sitting backwards.
Yeah, it was that whole dark ages. There were the big Final Cut Pro wars, Yeah. Because I was in...
It's very technical.
They wanted me to sit there and... yeah. Oh, it's very high. What did Steve Mendelson say? It's very high tech.
And what was that about, Victor?
Well, no, it was... what happened was, okay, I'm a professional editor. So before I even arrived at M&N, I had been working with Final Cut Pro for years. So you had to go through this whole big, complicated morass of testing and kissing people's behinds and all this other kind of stuff. So I just said, look, let me just test out on this thing so I can just go, they wanted me to sit down and, And then on top of that, they got the little youth channel kids running around and it's like, what are you, crazy? It's like,
So he wanted to be checked out with not doing anything, and he was told that
by Steve Mendelson
that it's very high tech.
He said in the big meeting, he said, "Well,
I'm glad to meet somebody.
Final Cut Pro is very high tech."
I'm so glad I met you, Victor, because you're exactly how I felt about Steve Mendelson. And I'm glad to find somebody that actually can talk to me about like what a weirdo this guy is.
Well, he went to Brazil one time.
But now hang on just a second, before we go into this, I just want to say this is Paula Gloria, and I'm all into connections of empathy, so Steve Mendelson, if you're out there, we're just trying to kind of reach out and resolve this, because we feel that M&N could be better if more voices were heard. And I want to say that along those lines, this is a wonderful breakfast for me at Pete's, because we have John here, who was 911Shaman, terrifying people on YouTube.
God, terrifying.
And he had a comment against Victor that had the distinction of being the nastiest comment of the day, because I was shifting him over to my website, paulagloria.com, because on YouTube, which with so much traffic...
Oh, I read it. I never read it. We were looking for it last night. Sorry.
Well, my sister said, Paula, I can't be on with you, because this is a terrible association. Some of my clients, she's a wardrobe consultant, are going to see this, and I realized then I couldn't keep these comments on there anymore. So I shifted them to paulagloria.com. It wasn't specifically, it was really, I wanted to find out what was behind those comments, and you at Columbus Circle have now vindicated me that we can find out what's most alive through these tragic expressions of unmet needs, because you indicated you did have a need to connect.
Yeah, I did, and those, you see, when I first met you guys, I thought you guys were the enemy. And I was thinking, Nazis
because of Nico's humor and DJ
Nico
Hitler.
And the things that went down at Ground Zero, and I heard about some arrests, and I was sort of like I was a plane hugger. I was on the other side, so as a troll, I was sort of shilling for the plane huggers. But then I started saying to myself, I'm not having any fun here with these plane huggers. I want to hang out with these no-planers. And I started really, I realized I had a lot of unmet needs. I was very bitter I was very bitter, not bitter against blacks or Jews or anything like that. It was just my own, own lack of
trauma.
Yeah, just my own, not being able to move forward.
Right.
And
because when your mom died, that really.
There was just a lot of weird stuff, and it was all disconnected. A lot of that.
What that settlement? If she won the biggest settlement.
I don't know if it comes down to money. It means that on the books, it means that she's been vindicated.
I see.
And I've yet to still look at it. It's still rough for me to deal with. I mean, my mother is in a box in my apartment in a file cabinet. I mean, it's
for ashes.
Yeah.
Mine too. Yeah.
So every once in a couple of nights, sometimes I get a little creeped out. I'll be like, "There's a body in my house." Yeah. But yeah, it's just Eminem just will they prop you up and then they just kind of knock you down.
You gotta understand something. Just for your own. Maybe this will help you sleep better at night. Look, Eminem is public access, which means anybody can come off the street and try to make a TV show. As a result, a lot of people have these fantasies or delusions as to, they're going to make a movie, or they're going to do this, or they're going to do that, and they don't have the basis clue as to what the hell they're doing or what they're trying to get into. Or if they're really put into the real world, they wouldn't survive. So you can't make Eminem a really important part of your life because, it's public access. It's not like you were working at 20th Century Fox.
Yeah.
It's public access.
But nobody else is giving a certain message out, and that's what I liked about John's work, is that he started as a plane hugger against us, but just by keeping a focus on the work, something was learned, Oh, well, I didn't want any coffee.
Oh, I'll have it.
We'll hit it. But I've been still trying to figure it out. I've been wanting to write it all down in a book, but it just turns into it's just a horror story, really. I mean, this is what happened.
Well,
I'm in master control, and this guy named Jay Dedman.
Oh, Jay
comes in.
Jay.
But this is what I'm talking about. Shills, that people are hired for a reason. This guy comes into my workspace, crashes the computer, crashes master control.
Not consciously.
No, he did. And him and Raheem Brown, they come in and they didn't work in my department, and they're like, "Fuck you," and like, "Go fuck yourself" and stuff, and get the fuck out of here. And I'm like, I'm at work, man. I'm like, these are kids coming up to me and talking to me this way. So I kick them out, and I write an incident report against them. And who gets fired?
You.
Right.
Wow.
And then these guys, because this is the Steve Mendelsohn mentality of Eminem, was to just basically go backwards. And I was 33 at the time. This kid's like 18 years old, and he's cursing me out.
Well, that's what you have. This is what they're hiring.
There's no supervisors to go to. There's no union.
Listen, there is. You have to understand. That's what's running this whole system nowadays. You look at the street. You look at what's again, I've been to so many companies and organizations. All they're hiring are these young kids.
You know how many
because they can pay them next to nothing.
You know how many incident reports were written against Jay Dedman? Somewhere about a dozen.
Really?
I mean, this kid, I don't know who he was or what he was, but he was just the most.
He was trying to get people into to doing YouTube kind of things.
Yeah, but
actually, I kind of resisted, and eventually I did get on YouTube, and it was a good thing. So I wound up saying, "Oh, this is what Jay was trying to do." So I don't know. I don't know. I think we should kind of give people benefit of the doubt.
I would never give him the benefit of the doubt because I've had personal experience.
Well, he's not there anymore, so come back to Eminem.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Raheem Brown is still there, but I'm sure 18 years old. I'm sure he's grown up. He's about 24 now, 25. So if you're listening, I hope you grew up, kid. Me and him got along great because he was like a little actor and I was an actor. We do impressions of people at work. And once Vivaldi got under his skin, that was it. Me and Vivaldi didn't get along at all. Once they got rid of Don and Woody, Vivaldi just turned into... Nobody liked him either.
I think what I'd like to do is have
I'm naming names.
Harold Channer listen to this because he's trying to get ACAP, Association for Cable Access Producers, underway, get their rules and stuff. Look at that.
It's Josh Walensky.
I finally made it.
Hey, that's wonderful. Let's give him a chair.
Hello, everyone. I had a great run around New York City.
Josh Walensky. Can we
As usual, I had a lot of adventures already.
Josh Walensky.
Hi, Victor and I.
How are you, Josh?
I'm John.
John? Oh, okay. Good.
Hey, Josh.
911Shaman.
And that's even that was a joke about Gloria. The night shamanism. I'm not a shaman.
Gloria Metzer?
No, I was saying about like you were doing a shamanism. That's how it really got. That's why I started paying attention to, because you were talking about curing the mind, and there was this, this kind of rooting out of things and getting to the psychological aspects, finding out and getting into the root problems that people have. So to me, I saw that as a form of shamanism.
Well, what I was trying to do is understand, why do people see what they see and why don't they see what apparently is there?
Well, I think Nico had a lot to do, influenced me as well, because I was seeing how, like when you were talking about transgressive comedy, at first I thought you guys were serious. I mean, like in terms of a lot of this activism. And so I wasn't sure how to approach you, because to me you're still an enigma to me. Although
I would have been here earlier, but you know how many people stopped and said to me, "Can you have Josh Walensky's autograph naked with Paula Gloria?"
Yeah.
Any idea how many people
stuck into a hallway somewhere.
Okay.
Quick, got stuck into a hallway.
Everybody said a gathering of the heavyweights on cable TV. This is where it's at. Okay. Forget UG. We got Josh. We got Victor Taplin. We got PG. We got him. We got all the biggies here. The biggies. All right. Is this it or what?
So where are we going to put...
And you have the mighty Mitchell under the table, too.
Maybe we need two tables
Josh,
here.
I'm familiar with your work as well.
Well, I mean, Ugly George is
with Harold
the
Channer.
classic of...
Well, the group, the African American community.
George.
Yeah, wait a minute. Let me... If we move this about a foot, I can put it there so the clowns can be playing.
Okay.
Can you pull this closer to you?
Yeah.
That's the second part. Okay. And we're going to play 3 more parts. Okay. Then you should see the one with
Can you sneak in this chair over there?
Yeah, sure. All right.
Yeah. I'd like to see more of those. I hope you do another one.
Yeah. There are 5 more on the way.
That was one of the best shows I've ever seen.
That was one of the best shows you ever saw. I think more on this time.
Did you see that one, Paula?
What was that?
Harold. Him and Harold hosted a show. And
yeah. You know what?
Here, let me...
No, I hosted the show.
You hosted the show.
He was one of our moderators. Because I bring very complex people with so much to offer. I find that if I have a group of really knowledgeable moderators, like Harold, or
I don't know.
Yeah, sure. Okay, folks,
that's a little bit. Why don't you put it on the ground?
Smith at the Green Party.
I mean, not the camera.
Get more accomplished. Now, Dr. Smith is just wonderful.
Dr. Smith from Lost in Space.
Yes.
He was the evil Dr. Smith.
Yeah.
Oh, Jonathan Harris?
Yeah.
What about him? You knew him?
Yeah.
You didn't know him. Something. The pain. Public access.
And here I dared to think I was important, surrounded by these luminaries here. I mean, unbelievable. Okay? We're really, the cameras are really going full blast. I mean, is this big time or what? That's what. Let me just, you know,
We should order now because they're waiting.
Yeah.
Have you got my order? No.
What did you order, Paula? Because you're between healthy and practical.
Right.
I grew up watching your show, by the way.
Yeah.
5.
Everybody's gonna eat?
Yeah, you're gonna eat, right? I'll put it on your tab.
Okay.
Pick out something.
Oh, let me, is this the original equipment? Is this the,
Yeah, we have a new thing. We have a new thing that Paula and Josh understand. Okay, it's called newer technology all the time.
No, I'm talking about your harness. The harness.
You have to change it all the time.
I understand Panasonic awarded you a new camera.
Thanks to you.
But George.
Thanks to you.
George.
Yeah.
Panasonic gave him a new camera because of
when you
the
get a
show he
chance,
did with
another
Josh.
water. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. George,
All right.
the secrets, I mean, the Polish penthouse is as legendary as the Batcave.
We know that, but there's a big difference, which you would know about.
Well, I've never been invited to the Polish penthouse.
And you've never been invited to the Batcave.
Oh.
Okay? And the same thing that happened to the creator of Batman happened to me, but that's another story.
Bob Kane.
Yeah, because I had lunch off.
Bob Kane, his father used to work for New York Daily News. He was a printer.
Not that I'm aware of.
Just like the
That's
guys that
unlikely.
came up with Superman too. Those two guys.
Thank you.
They robbed them
exactly
too.
the
Yeah.
story.
Jerry
That's
Siegel
exactly
and,
the story.
Schuster.
Siegel and Schuster, yeah.
Can I,
In fact, they were embarrassed, and Warner was embarrassed into giving them money when they started doing the Christopher Reeve Superman.
can I have eggs Florentine with salad instead of French fries? Or whatever, but I don't want fries. No fries.
I'll take the fries. No fries.
No, you don't want the fries.
Yes, I
Trust
do.
me, no, you don't.
Yes, I do. Give me the shell steak here.
If you guys made, potatoes the right way, because potatoes are healthy, as Van Gogh used
From
to
our
say.
point of view, we make it the right way.
Okay, give me
Okay,
the
then
shell
give
steak
them and
with
I'll
eggs
give them
over
to-
easy. Okay.
Steak and eggs, right?
Yeah,
How would you
steak
like
and
the
eggs.
steak?
Medium rare.
Salad is
And the eggs?
Over easy.
Even French fries can be very
let me show
creative.
people
I
what
know
just
from
dropped.
my grandmother.
And give me home fries.
She
with that.
used to soak out all the oil, and it was delicious. Just a
And yourself, sir?
And,
Still trying to figure out.
give me a
What
nice
is this? The
coffee with
brunch
that.
or the
brunch.
regular menu? They don't have a hamburger on the
Iced coffee.
No, get the brunch.
What?
I got that.
Okay. Shell steak?
Yeah.
In fact, a few years ago on Madison Avenue around Jackie Kennedy's house,
Yeah.
and I ordered French fries. I noticed
Oh,
that
I see. Oh,
the chef at the grill.
Oh, I see.
soaked out the
Okay, I got
Never
you.
mind the unimportant shit.
All right,
Did Jackie
shell steak.
Kennedy
Yeah,
insult
shell
you?
steak. Shell steak.
No,
Eggs,
She did me,
scrambled.
yes.
Oh, what did she say?
So did her daughter.
She said,
Something
"Are you a
like, get that
Republican?"
goddamn camera away from me. Something like, I'm not bearing my boobs for you.
Yeah.
And you know
prefer
what?
French fries.
I have it on tape when I can find the tape. I have a daughter saying the same thing. I'm a liberal
I
Democrat.
see. All
What?
right, they
Show
give me
my
like
boobs?
mother like daughters.
I'm Carolyn Kennedy. I can't do that.
See, John, you're too
Yeah,
young
I
to
know,
have seen
medium
Ugly
well.
George's show. How do you know
Oh,
that?
I grew up in New York City. I grew up in a housing project, and I was very aware of Ugly
The
George.
only white
You were
guy in a
precocious.
housing project? They allowed you into a housing
Well, in the
project?
70s, there was a little
Are
different.
liberal Democrats?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Oh, can we?
So I read definitely was exposed to public access when it was uncensored, unexpurgated, straight up XXX.
Really?
One of the great experiments in free speech.
But you must have been so young.
Oh yeah, that's probably
Did your
why-
mom think it was going to ruin you?
No, it was just too many crazy things going on. Well, they didn't watch it. They didn't see me watch it. I mean, you watched it at night. But it was just so much fun.
But did
So much.
George's show was
Yeah,
fun.
all those great shows. And what's his name? Al Goldstein.
Oh, screw.
What did
oh,
Al Goldstein do?
Screw.
Wow.
Yeah, Screw Magazine,
Midnight
the
Blue.
TV. Midnight Blue. Just yeah.
Great Midnight, yeah.
I don't
That
know
was
what
just a
that
golden
is.
age. I think Ugly George is definitely part of that golden age. I think he's one of the creators of public access.
See, I tried to show you something on my laptop, but it passed over your mind completely. Remember that stuff about Studio 54? Remember Studio 54 I showed you on my laptop? Okay. Remember when they said New York was where it's at in the 70s? Remember they had like, it was the center of the universe, that everybody who was hip came to New York and did the required things? Studio 54, Plato's Retreat, right? All that stuff. That's what he's talking about. That's what Victor's talking about, okay? Like, this is where it was at. Starting about 19...
You didn't do Suitor 54, did you?
No, I didn't. But you know what? I hate your guts, Ugly George, because you never invited me to the Polish penthouse. And I've always wanted to see the Polish penthouse.
But he didn't want to see your breasts. It's not about being black, Victor.
I guess you didn't get it. What was the show about?
It was about naked women.
Boobs.
Boobs, right. You don't qualify. No, I don't qualify.
You don't qualify.
And I don't remember if you had a spacesuit or something, or was there something like that?
It was a silver model.
Ask Ghostbusters about that.
Yeah.
Oh, right, that's right.
And I even saw you. I remember you being around, like, I think once you were around my neighborhood. Everybody there were always Ugly George sightings. There used to be another guy
Ugly George sightings?
Yeah, definitely.
Really?
I told you.
I'm telling you, he was the Sasquatch of public access. I used to, you would see like, and this is before, and we didn't see him on public access for many years, but we're like, there goes Ugly George.
Really?
Yeah. But it's so nice that you see. Then Paula comes along and boom, you know, this
She has
it creates right, and then you like the vintage public access producers are they're finding you.
You know, your stuff, when I looked at it on BoobTube, you know, Josh, they took what George did and then they made it the corporate interpretation when the women were taking their tops off on cue, and it was a whole different...
That's not BoobTube, that's Girls Gone Wild.
It was spontaneous.
Right.
There it isn't spontaneous.
No,
if
but
no money
really
changes hands, okay, which is why I get offended when people compare me to Goldstein and stuff, okay? You got to understand professional women, professional bad women, all right? Josh Walensky knows a lot about professional bad women, okay? And you know what? If no money changes hands, they're not bad. They're not anything. They're just out of here, okay?
Well, you said it was a goof and a lark, right?
But with,
and like
with bad
Luann
girls,
said you were a little uglier than you are today, right?
Luann? Who's Luann?
In the park. Remember when we had Jim Fetzer and Molly there at Central Park?
Oh, what's his name's wife, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Carl
okay.
Pearson's.
All right. Well,
But anyway,
I got to get rid of this.
Yeah, they act very differently.
This is the original thing that you
5 weeks ago.
cited.
That's why I was
It's a
asking.
later version of it, okay? You know where that came from?
Where?
That came from stupid Puerto Ricans. Because stupid Puerto Ricans don't ask you anything, they tell you. And they say, you know, you look like the astronaut. And I'd say, I'm not an astronaut.
And he's not a
You know, you look like the astronaut, and you are transmitting the satellite TB right up to the satellite. And I said, no, I'm not transmitting TB up to the satellite. Yes, you are transmitting TB up to the satellite. Okay? So they told me that. And another thing that Josh is too young to remember, when I first had the video,
To the satellite.
yeah, when I first had the video, it was reel to reel, and I had a clear plastic case so I could see the reels were turning. Do you know how many morons walked up to me, known as film students from the School of Visual Arts, and said, you know, you're really stupid, you're exposing your film. Boy, are you dumb. That film's going to be no good when you develop it. They didn't ask me, they told me. Okay? They told me. All right? So you'd be amazed at how people who never achieved anything in their lives tell you things. They don't ask you things. Very good. Another round of
But
water when you get a chance.
he's right.
There you
About
go.
a couple of weeks ago, I met 2 porn stars out of say bars, and they bought very good books from me. They bought Robert Burns, bought a book on the Holocaust, and they bought a very good book about Hemingway. You know, and when I showed them some...
Yeah, but you didn't tell them the truth about Hemingway. Okay? You think the Hemingway that counts is Ernest Hemingway, don't you? That's how little you know. You know the Hemingway that counts? Denise Hemingway. Now, you don't know Denise, do you? But I knew Denise very well. Denise has a lot better body than Ernest. And I picked up Denise, not knowing what her last name was. And I just saw a beautiful blonde with a great body.
Did you have her on tape?
My new studio wasn't even built yet on Broadway. We still had paint on the walls and stuff. And I brought her in and she was a little like, oh my God, you know, this is where you're bringing me? I said, don't worry about it. You're with Ugly George and Victor T. So when she heard that, she said, okay. And A lot of people don't understand this. Ernest Hemingway. He had a brother named Jack. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Jack was.
Thank you very much.
No. Jack Hemingway was the somewhat more normal Hemingway. And Jack had children. One of whom was Denise. Okay? And Denise was a beautiful blonde with great boobs. So we did a little nude scene in the unpainted Polish penthouse studio.
Oh, no.
Wasn't even ready to go yet. Okay? And then Denise called me up a few hours later when the show went on and said, I'm never going to see you again. Do you know how many people called me? My name is Hemingway. You even said my name was Hemingway. Oh my, I can't do this. You're destroying my reputation.
And then,
No, it gave an instant stardom now.
and then Studio 54, that was okay. Huh?
And then he mentions Mariel Hemingway. Okay? Now, you were never insulted by Mariel Hemingway, were you, Josh?
No, you were.
In Cosmopolitan magazine. She was just starting to rise. You probably don't know this story because no one seems to know it. What's her name, Hemingway? What the hell was her name? The gorgeous
Margaret. It's Margaret and Mary.
Margot Hemingway, whatever her name was.
One of them.
The gorgeous 6'1" blonde that came to New York and took New York by style. Okay. Again,
We need a glass, young man.
Yeah. That's,
Do you want another glass?
Service.
Yeah, that's Jack.
Good to drink
Hemingway.
water.
All right, not Ernest's daughter. It's Jack. And that's Margot Hemingway. She came to New York. She was an instant success. 6'1", blonde, bosoms. Had no trouble taking her clothes off for anything. Boom. One day, almost as a joke, she says, "Oh, here's my little sister Mariel," and she brings little Mariel to the set, who was about 14 years old. Now, New York, being full of perverted producers, they said, "She's 14 and you're 21. We'll take the 14-year-old." Okay.
What technique do you use when you're rejected by bosomy women?
I tell them they can. If you can't make it on the Ugly George show, you can get it on Josh Walensky. All right. And when they hear that, they go, "Oh my God! Oh, geez!" From the dregs of society. Anyway, what happened was, beautiful, big, tall Margot, who I met her husband briefly. Very few people remember who her husband was. Faded out fairly quickly due to drugs and too much sex with Josh. Okay? And little 14-year-old Mariel, with no tits at all, got grabbed up. So she's doing an interview after her boob job, which I don't want to talk about, with Cosmopolitan, and they said, "You know, aren't you a great flowery actress?" She said, "Yes, I'm a great talented actress. I'm doing good work. It's not like I'm out there with Ugly George. I'm doing good work." She was very insulted. Okay? In Cosmopolitan, I have it somewhere.
Do you have any video of Studio 54? And you guys
I have to find it. Okay? We have a.
He's
thing
got
called
Michael
the
Jackson.
Archives.
Is it in black and white video?
A little black and white is on BoobTube too.
We're talking time travel.
Say, we're talking, anybody who
travel.
has any Ugly George shows, send them into the Concordia Foundation.
How was that video?
We want to use it.
I haven't been able to play it completely
if we can find
yet,
all
but
the
thank
footage,
you. I'll
he
get
doesn't
to
have
it.
all
Any
of
of them
it.
are
I
really
had to move
historically interesting.
A disastrous
anyone who
move,
might have
but
some more?
you do what you got to do. Okay?
Victor had some, right? You had kept it in just in an old shoebox or something?
For 30 years.
For 30 years.
30 years. It was like the Ark of the Covenant or something. An actual Betamax copy. Betamax.
So you copied in Betamax.
Betamax of Ugly George. It was the Ugly George special. Beyond Ugly George.
You probably didn't like that people were copying it, right? Because you wanted them to buy them from you?
I told you what happened, but I'll repeat it again so you know. Okay? Because the past lives again on the internet and on many things that you don't understand. John Lennon came up to me, I believe it was February '77, at a premiere party for a movie called The Great Gatsby. And I did the dirtiest interview of his life with John and Yoko. He pulled on my sleeve and asked me to interview him, which is very flattering, by the way.
So John Lennon knew you.
He was watching the show.
Yeah,
okay? And
Well, he was living in Dakota at the time.
thank you. And then he...
I have copies of his.
You have copies of that?
Of his home tapes.
Not only that,
stuff that he did in like his bedroom and playing guitar and stuff. Yeah, his reclusive era.
Not only that, around that same time that Ugly George is talking about, I was a cameraman on my first professional job. Was the David Gruen show.
Vaguely remember.
David Gruen show. I was the cameraman. We did an interview with Roberta Flack in the Dakota.
Yeah.
And as I was leaving through the freight entrance, Roberta Flack's publicist said, "You know who lives behind that door?" And I said, "No, who?" He said, "John Lennon." Yeah. John Lennon was Roberta Flack's next door neighbor.
I heard that also Boris Karloff lived at the Dakota. He had an apartment there.
You would like that.
Well, I got to tell you, Paula and John, the reason that he did it, besides plugging himself on my popular show, one of his big reasons for doing it was he wanted to see what liberal, hypocritical scum in the Dakota would knock on his door and saying, "John, what were you doing on that dirty show that I never watch?" And I ran into him in Yoko a couple of weeks later on Madison Avenue, and he told me who some of those filthy, disgusting, hypocritical liberal scum were. He wouldn't name all the names, but he named some of them. I fainted. I couldn't even hear the names. I fainted when he started to tell me. And then they said they even stopped him in the lobby and said, "John, were you on that filthy show?"
Gosh. And if you see boob tube, it's just...
Yeah, but one of the reasons he did it was he didn't understand hypocrisy too much because he's from England. And in England, they're not hypocrites about sex. Not about sex. Maybe about other things, but not about sex. But he got a big kick out of it, and he couldn't quite understand it. You know? Why America was so far-reaching in so many ways, but it was so hypocritical and in the closet about sex. He couldn't understand that, because it's not like that in England.
George, where did you get the name Ugly George? It's
never mind. Anyway, Lennon, I'm talking about Lennon, it's more important. Lennon began to pick up very quickly. He's a very shrewd guy, you know, on hypocritical stuff about sex. And one of his major reasons for coming up and tugging on my sleeve, he says, "Say, is that camera on?" You know, he was hinting he wanted me to shoot him. So I did. And when he saw how many big people sneered at him, how many people began to avoid him in the lobby, who had previously been his best friends, people in the lobby would talk behind their hands and say, "That was Lennon. You know what show he was on?"
You think he's exaggerating, John?
No, Lennon. No, that makes
Lennon told me this himself.
I don't know. I don't think he would be. Do you think? I don't think so. His life. If you followed, I would take it if we followed. If we did a reality show on George.
Yeah.
It makes perfect logical sense. Lennon used George's show to smoke out all the phonies that lived in his building.
That. Yeah. So Lennon liked that as an artist.
That's what it was.
I told you, that was his second big reason for doing it, besides to help himself.
Smart.
Now, not too long after that, unfortunately, he got assassinated. Okay? So I ran a special black and white show, because in those days I didn't have a time-based corrector, and you couldn't mix color and black and white. So I had to do something a little dumb, but it paid off. I ran one show in black and white. Okay? And it was all black and white, and included Lennon interview. Some clown copied it off the air. Now, that was 1980, I think. Many years later, the internet comes along. That clown has now transferred it and put it in clips, not in the whole thing. He put a few stills up on the internet on some very popular Beatles websites. You may not understand this. The Beatles are more popular now than they were in 1968. Okay? There's something like 13,000 Beatles fan websites.
Well, what would you agree with that? Because you really keep up on those blogs.
On those rock and roll?
The forums.
Yeah, well, after I was dealing with, everything's become commercialized in the sense that they bear no resemblance to the original conception. Unlike the Beatles, I mean, you still have two of them still alive, and but in terms of the way the whole pop culture's gone, it's really about kind of promoting what I would call a form of pedophilia.
What do you mean pedophilia?
Well, I feel like we live in a culture that just is more interested in...
Yes, but what would the Beatles have to do with it?
No, I didn't say the Beatles had anything to do. I'm saying
the Doors, that's how I...
bands like that, or ones that are still... I don't know. I'm kind of losing my train of thought.
No,
but
explain the pedophilia because people don't understand it.
It's just like what you see on TV now. You know, there were times there used to be a TV commercial in the early '80s. It was called Underoos, and they were like superhero underwears for children. And they had boys dancing around in their underwears, and then they had a commercial of little girls dancing around in their little panties and underwears doing chorus kicks. And I think that's sort of where the culture is gone.
Yeah, Holy John Benet Ramsey.
Yeah, the whole
John Benet Ramsey. That's the whole that whole little kid beauty pageant show. Taking these babies and putting them in adult women makeup, and that's like pedophilia. Yeah. You know, hunting ground or something.
It happened long before that. Jesus Christ. Okay. I think it was 76 or even earlier. They make a movie called Pretty Baby.
Oh,
okay?
Yeah.
And they put a 10-year-old girl in it nude. All right? 10 years old.
Brooke Shields.
Okay.
But it's quite common in European cinema. Like if you look at some of Roman Polanski's work, like Macbeth, for example, there's like a little kid taking a bath, and he's like 5 years, he's about 10 years old, really.
Well,
it's more common in Europe. It seems it's not pedophilia in Europe, but in America.
Yeah, but why can't Roman Polanski come back to the United States?
But John,
she forgave him. But he can't come back because of the law.
You're right, exactly, the law.
I liked the humor in Little Miss Sunshine. That was great. Was it Little Miss Sunshine? That was good. Yeah, that was good.
Anyway, in case you understand public access, Calvin Klein was very shrewd. He did a very sexy commercial, as sexy as he could get away with the Brooke Shields, saying nothing comes between me and my Calvins. And there was, of course, a lot of controversy, especially from the garbage Catholic Church, as usual. Okay? Oh my God, you can't do this. This is little girls. This is pedophilia. Oh, this is awful. You know what? Every TV network ran that commercial. They had no trouble running it because they took money from Calvin Klein, and you know their ratings went up. So it's about money. So while they were making fun of public access, and public access is, you know, the word they love to use for some reason, purveyors of pornography. Okay? They love
thank
that.
you.
These are the eggs, right? Paula, these are the eggs.
Yeah.
Okay.
The artichoke? Yeah. Oh, wow.
So
Look like
when they were talking about me, and when they were talking about
They called
Midnight
you a
Blue,
purveyor of pornography.
not personally, they
Here.
yeah, steak and eggs.
Okay.
This is
That's it.
over easy.
That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Catch a hot steak sauce.
That's the way to do it. Go for the meat, George.
Yeah. Let's get some steak sauce. Anyway, do you get the idea, Miss Gloria? Cable TV was bad in the late 70s and 80s because it allowed pornography on. All right? And pornography was translated as anything to do with naked women.
Oh, I also need a fork. I think we need 2 forks.
Yeah, some
What kind of soda do you have?
There is a place, I went to that on the west side where they really are very creative with potatoes, and they're really healthy and delicious.
What street?
It's called The New Wave. The New Wave.
We're talking time travel.
Yeah, we're talking money. So when public access, which had no money, and the public access people put on naked women, there were a lot of frowns, there were a lot of sneers, there were a lot of complaints, especially from the Catholic Church and the New York Board of Rabbis and other nonsense.
Hillary Clinton.
This is in the late 70s, okay? Everybody had something to say about pornography on cable TV and why it was a purveyor of pornography. But when little 10-year-old or 11-year-old, whatever the hell she was, Brooke Shields, went on TV and undulated in her Calvin Kleins and said, nothing comes between me and my Calvins.
In other words, she wasn't wearing underwear.
Yeah, that's what they meant. You know what? There were no organized protests. Made a lot of money for NBC and ABC and CBS.
Oh, Blue Lagoon, yeah.
Funny you mentioned Blue Lagoon.
They kind of like they glued her long hair to her breasts.
Right, oh yeah.
That's not Brooke.
It was a body.
The first one
I know you might have done it.
The first one is
Little Foxes was the other one. Jodie Foster was in that one, Little Foxes.
You see, when the establishment can make money from naked little girls, they do. Starting with Pretty Baby. When Josh Valinsky puts naked little girls on his show, oh my God, you never hear the end of it. Okay, he's a pervert, he's a pedophilia.
But you got to do it in a subliminal fashion.
Uh-oh. Josh Valinsky's Secrets on the Paula Gloria show.
Cops in the bicycle.
No, there's a new one that just happened a few days ago where the cop takes the guy's on the floor and he's breaking his legs with a stick. And he shattered his
That's
kneecap.
in Palestine, right?
No, right here in Delancey Street.
Same difference. Palestine, New York, you know, same difference.
Why, we have a
Thank you.
civilian complaint board, and that's not supposed to happen.
Yeah, well, they can shoot people 50 times and get away with it.
It's called 911Shaman.
How did you get that shot? And I saw you had 28,000 hits.
How did I get the clip?
Yeah.
Oh, I took it off of New York Post. They had it in a little video and you could hardly see it. So I just put the camera close to it, kind of bootlegged it, and then I put it on YouTube. And you'd be surprised how many cops are actually posting, and how much racism is really.
What's happening there? What do you mean?
Well, it's just like
Tell the story.
every conceivable way of saying something racist about the guy deserving getting beat.
Wow.
These comments,
Oh, the guy on the ground that broke his legs.
And on top of that, you have like police officers are also on my, on that clip talking. And I even threatened them. I said, because they were coming up with some racist stuff, and I said, you continue this, I'm going to take your quotes, I'm going to put them in a video and say, here's what the NYPD police officers think. And
You can use the unmet needs department at PaulaGloria.com.
yeah, I'm getting into that. I've already told a few people that too. I'm like, you are on my nasty comments.
So
This is the way to
the guy was laying.
The
Guy was lying on the ground.
Yeah, getting.
And they were saying, put your hands behind your back, and they were beating him with that truncheon.
Yeah, the one in Palestine you were talking about, the two Israeli officers who were beating the guys on the rock pile. They were taking their arms, and then they were on a rock pile. And then the guy takes his arm, and these two Israelis. And I played that on MNN when it first came out on Free Speech TV, and it caused a firestorm because in those days, Amy Goodman was not on MNN until I actually found Democracy Now! On Free Speech TV, and I began transmuting her shows on MNN's channels late at night, which was against their policy. So even before Dan Kaufman showed up and Amy Goodman started on MNN, I was putting her show on MNN, and Free Speech TV thanked me by carrying MNN's webcasts. So the reason why MNN's webcast started out the way it is because I made that connection.
Wow.
And with the connection with Democracy Now! And at the time, all that stuff is all documented in papers and stuff, but I'd like to see my file at MNN. I'd like to see
So why is Amy Goodman afraid of Ugly George? I just met her for the third time yesterday in the street. She shunned me.
That's unusual.
Moved away quickly. Don't talk to me. No, get away from me. Get away from me.
Does she know
She's a
you?
Jewish intellectual.
She knows me.
So what does that have to do with it?
You met
Worse than a Jewish intellectual.
You met her in Hell's Kitchen, right?
She's a Democrat.
Yeah, I don't know about all that party stuff.
And you are not allowed to say anything whatsoever about her God, FDR, about any Democratic president.
Webster Tarpley likes FDR too.
He what?
So, Josh, you're a friend of Amy. Why do you think Amy avoids George?
Well, that's how Amy is. She's sort of...
Is Amy a lesbian?
She's her grandfather was a rabbi and so on. She's puritanical in her ways.
Puritanical.
And she's also very private in what she likes and doesn't like.
Is she a lesbian?
No.
Worse than a lesbian, she's a Democrat. Okay? Far worse than being a lesbian. And the minute you say, let's look at a fair and balanced look at the Democrats, she goes into a tizzy. And you're not allowed to say the truth. For example, there was a certain person here from California. You're not allowed to say the governor of California, the Democrat, was impeached for corruption and thrown out. Because if you say that, you know what Amy calls you? A neocon.
She has her own vocabulary.
You're just repeating what happened. You know, you're telling the story. So it's a question of shoot the messenger if the messenger says something you don't like. Gray Davis was impeached by the people of California.
Yeah, but you think Gray Davis did it. He was just a puppet. It's a bigger problem, the Enron thing.
You mean that the man was...
I know it well because my grandmother's fortune was lost in that.
Yeah, the man was the head of the state of California. Utilities were making obscene profits, and he profited nothing from that, even though he was the man...
Puppets always profit, but they're not the cause.
Quote that, John. Puppets always profit. Quote that. Okay?
Well, until they get killed, or, you know, until they take the fall.
And you know what Amy said in so many words? When the people of California elected Gray Davis, they were smart and brilliant and progressive. When they impeached him, they were stupid and misled by those goddamn Republicans. That's what she said in so many words.
Do you think Republicans are more honest about watching your show?
It's not a question of Republicans versus Democrats. It's a question of somebody says, let's look at the record. And you say, yes, but not my backyard. Don't look at my people in my backyard. If you do that, I'm going to label you and you're terrible and you're bad. You're anti-Semitic, anti-democratic, homophobic, this, that, anti-black, you're this, you're that. But I just said, let's look at the record, okay? 3 out of the 5 detectives who shot Sean Bell were black. But they never show you the picture of the black detectives. It's a racist thing. That's it. Let's show the 2 white detectives. The black one shot him too.
A secret that's really important. When you deal with things like Ugly George and so on, you have to really be honest. I found very many creative people in that field and area, wonderful people, but it is very true that you attract a negative energy, and you do attract, there is trouble when you do deal with that. I mean, it's a trade-off. There are so many people who really do walk away from you, many fine people.
They're not fine people.
Want nothing to do with it, so it's a trade-off.
They're not fine people.
On one way, you are doing something creative and interesting. On the other way, you have to realize that eroticism is a trade-off. You know, and I think Amy Goodman is among people who's aware of that, and she knows if she moves in that direction, she will perhaps gain some people, but lose many more, and she doesn't want to go there.
Yeah, she controls definitely her output. It's very tightly controlled. Yeah. She probably even works on what she says before she leaves.
You mean if I say the governor of California, a Democrat, was impeached by the people of the governor of California, that's eroticism?
Just a second. We're talking about a war in Iraq right now, and as New Yorkers, we don't even know what happened during 9/11. You know, I have subscribers all over the world that are sorry for Americans because they feel we're the stupidest and most deluded. They're taking the research and looking at the footage and things like that overseas even more than we're doing it here. So who cares about the eroticism?
Yeah, we've become the ugly Americans. The dreaded ugly Americans.
I think they're thinking of us as stupid Americans.
And stupid.
They feel that because this group doesn't even know what reality is, they believe things on television that aren't true.
Yeah, well, look what happened to Princess Diana. The same thing. That was murder. That was a hit.
What you're saying
is... But did we not see it?
Right. She was pregnant by an Arab.
Right.
What you're saying is...
And the future... And that child would have been the future half-brother or sister to the future King of England.
Here's a perfect example. Why do you think the Romanovs were killed off? They were cousins of the crown.
Well, they were killed off by the
Bolsheviks.
Right.
But the Romanovs were blood relatives of the Queen in England.
Sure. Right.
So who knows? They didn't come to their rescue. They could have gone to England as for sanctuary. And
why didn't they?
Well, probably because if they were bumped. Because if they were bumped off, there would have been more money.
And they probably would have feared a war with Russia.
Well, then you're saying that the royalty is just puppets.
the Romanovs in
Well,
Russia
they're the
were
ruling
bumped
class.
off.
I mean, just like with Princess
It's one of
Diana.
my favorite topics too, is the Romanovs.
You know, when you get
into
racism, you take people who could normally work together and figure out things, and you divide them.
That's the idea. Divide and conquer.
Or even the thing with the boob tube. If you get men and women divided, that's the worst division.
Well, that's why the women's liberation movement was so bad, especially in the black community, because what happened was prior to that, you know, like during civil rights, black women and men were all working together. Black families were all working together. Black communities and churches, whatever. Then when the women's liberation thing came in, what it did was it divided humanity.
Right.
So divide and conquer, divide and conquer, divide and conquer.
So what do you think boob tube, or what Ugly George, do you think he helped relations between men and women? Because some women say he demeans them, and yet when I see it, I see women kind of having a goofy...
No, you know what it is?
They're not doing it for money. And
No. Ugly George just brought the whole thing out in the open and just made it honest, that's all. And just exposed, and just cut away all the hypocrisy and made it honest.
And then Studio 15.
Men want to look at women, you know, normal guys anyway, you know. They want to look at women, they want to see women's bodies, and you know, we like that.
So he took away the hypocrisy, and then Studio 54 made it fashionable, would you say?
Well, Studio 54 was that
they'd show up naked. Stars would show up naked.
Well, that's that whole, you know, freedom. Nudity is freedom.
Tried to give you the answer 100 times and you haven't learned. The answer is the M word. Money. And the color is not black or white. The color is green. Okay? When people with a lot of green can make money off nudity, then it's okay. It's acceptable. When people without a lot of money do something with nudity, they become scapegoats, like me. Okay?
Wow, that's deep.
All right, so when NBC can run commercials of little Brooke Shields saying, nothing comes between me and my Calvins, no one says, grab their license, take it away, let's demonstrate in front of Rockefeller Center. It's pedophilia. You can't use little girls for that. No demonstrations against NBC running that commercial. But when Ugly George does it, oh my God, they have a whole long litany of evils. So the question boils down to is, who makes a lot of money off whatever's going on? Now, the reason that there is a woman that Paula Gloria knows who is more dangerous than Victor Taplin, more dangerous than John, more dangerous than Josh Walensky, even more dangerous than Paula Gloria. This woman is evil. And do you know what her name is? Web Fairy.
Oh, shoot.
And you know why this woman is evil? Because she says things about, dare I say it, 9/11. And she says things. Sometimes they make a lot of sense. That's why this woman is bad. Okay? Because it's an alternative. That's worse than a pretty girl taking her clothes off. All right? So you understand that?
You know, you used to say that ugly women, sexless women, were sort of preventing the natural flow of things.
I never said that.
What did you say about them?
I said sexless women are dangerous because they have nothing else to do. And starting in 1919, that was proven. A very clever guy whose name is still alive today in his publishing company came out with a magazine. You could call it True Confessions. That wasn't the exact title, but you could call it that. Because he discovered that ugly women have no lives and love to read about pretty women and how pretty women are always being approached by men who want them. Okay? And within a year, it was the top-selling magazine in the United States. And its readership was exclusively 100% ugly, sexless women who said, if I read this magazine, I'll see what men like, and I'll get titillated, and I'll learn about men and what they really like. None of the stories were true, because half a century later, I was invited up to the office of the magazine. And when I saw what the women looked like who wrote those articles, and when I saw who put them together, I fainted. Okay? It was nothing like the magazine pretends to be.
Yeah, but what I was saying is that actually what you do, George, is baggage. And a good example of that is Dr. Dr. Milner. You know, what's his first name? Richard Milner. Dr. Richard Milner is a biologist and a bacteriologist and wrote books on Darwin. And because he persists on being a professional pornographer, like, you know, he did that famous pornography film, Centerfold Fever. The unit, when he first received his doctorate, they refused to give him his degree on the basis that the university didn't want to be associated with the pornographer. Of course, he sued, and he still got his PhD. But
the subject matter shouldn't be there.
Pornography is baggage.
Now, was that
even
one of those,
when it's done
was that one of those liberal universities
and creatively, like Richard Milner?
Was that one of those liberal universities that prided itself on its liberalism?
Yes.
And who was the famous chancellor of that university, and what state was that in?
Well, Richard told me once, and you know, I didn't pursue it too much.
It was Berkeley. Dr. Clark Kerr said, "We are liberals here. This is California. We're not some backwater Bible Belt thing in the South. We're liberal California." Except a pornographer? Oh my God, a great bacteriologist, but he's a pornographer? Oh no, we can't do that. We can't do that. So much for phony liberalism. So much for phony California liberalism.
Oh, okay, perfect.
And of course, the Museum of Natural History is very proud to have him as a...
He's gone. He's not at the museum.
In the museum.
As soon as they saw him associating with naked women, they fired him. Okay?
Oh, so
so
was he where you were going to get him to come on my show? Was that the guy?
Yes.
Will he come on my show?
Yeah, I think he will.
Okay, let's post this and he can look at it, and then let's see if we can get a show.
I used to watch.
Richard Milner, come on the show. And he can also bring his lovely wife, who also has a PhD and agrees with him eye to eye.
Yes, bring his wife. That would be great. It's always nice to see the women behind the throne.
And she also has a PhD.
I mean, he was at my mom's wake. I mean, he's a great guy.
I don't know. You know what his wife's PhD is?
He's one of the smartest individuals I ever met at M&M.
Yeah. Well, Richard's been out there. Richard's been in the real world.
Anyway.
Yeah, and he tells great stories too.
You get the idea of the Berkeley riots in the late 60s and early 70s. It was about liberalism and freedom of speech. And now what he's saying is, there were those great liberals who said, you've legitimately earned a degree, but now you have some association with pornography. Well, what does that have to do with his degree in a different field?
And you never considered your work pornographic, so we have to define the terms also.
Anybody who says anything bad about Ugly George is saying something bad about this, and that's serious. You can say anything you want about Ugly George, but the minute you say, I'm not in favor of the channel changing, I'm not in favor of diversity, I'm not in favor